Good morning, everybody. All right, so I'm going to let a few people in when we get started today. We have a long session today, and I want to kind of get started. I got a few videos I'm going to show you, and I'm going to actually stop these videos and explain them to you. I think today is going to be very, very powerful because what we've been talking about a lot is what we need to do, how we need to do, what we need to do in order to get healthy. A lot of you come to me because you want to have surgery in order to get healthy. A lot of you come to me primarily because you gotten healthy and you gotten the excess skin, and we take that excess skin off. I do cosmetic surgery, I do bariatric surgery, but I generally do what's called metabolic health. I'm going to open up my chat box on the side, so I want all of y'all to say good morning to me. And I know y'all have already started saying good morning. Good morning to you all too. All right. Just going to get 30 more seconds to allow you to come in. Got my Utamate going, my tea, my hot tea. No sugar. When I do eat sugar, this is what I'm going to take in. I mean, before I take that sugar in, right? But I'm not going to take any sugar. So what we're going to do is kind of review what we talked about last time, because as I try to explain to everybody, this is continuing education. This is not just before I give you a prescription for GLP-1 drugs. This is not just before I do surgery and you just kind of say, okay, fine, I've heard it, I'm out. Because every week we try to give you something a little bit different, because as I continue to learn, and we all do, things change, right? And things have changed quite a bit over the past couple of decades. Remember back in the day when we talked about fat was bad for you, so they started taking whole milk off the shelves and all the fat products off the shelves, and they replaced them with refined carbohydrates, right? And so that's the problem we're into today. So the point being is that things change, and we need to kind of change along with it. All righty. Let's see here. I think got a few housekeeping items that we need to take care of. Those are some folks here who are here for their pre-op nutritional evaluation. This course is an ongoing course, so we're expected to see you back as your progress goes along. I'm going to get started pretty much now. I'm going to share my slides with you and kind of get going here, okay? If I can figure out how to do it. Share. I'm going to share the whole screen. I'm really trying. This is why I'm going so rapidly here today. I'm really trying to keep this down to about an hour, and I'm going to try to do a good job at it today. But I think there's going to be some very, very valuable things, because, like I was talking about it before, is that I'll tell you what to eat. I'll tell you what not to eat. I'll tell you what exercises to do. And I'm going to tell you that uh, in the form that we have an operation basically called the 4 pillars of health, of just general health. Now, there are a lot of people that are out on the internet, and there are a lot more things that kind of go into it. But to simplify it so that we understand it and we keep it in the back of our minds as much as possible, I'm just going to give you the 4 pillars that, if you indeed practice these 4 pillars on a day-to-day basis, you will probably 99% of you will probably do just fine. Okay. I have to kind of get some of these little things out the way so I can actually see. So I'm going to start with basically this slide here. And I'm taking for granted everybody can hear me. All right. All right. So basically we're going to be talking about life, because life's not just about living longer. It's about living healthier longer. And trust me, whatever problems you're having now, whatever back pain, whatever knee pain, whatever joint pain, whatever brain fog, whatever pre-diabetes, whatever you're having now, unless we make a detour, that problem is going to get worse. So you know what it feels like now, don't you? Well, just imagine what it's going to do next year, the year after that, and in 5 years. Do you want whatever it is that you have now to get worse? Now, for some of you, you don't have any problems at all. You're just here primarily because I just want to avoid going there. I feel pretty decent right now, but I'm overweight and I know the consequences of being overweight and obese, carrying this excess fat. I know those consequences because I had relatives that went through that. I had friends that have gone through that. So you're here uh, as a preventive measure, and I applaud that. Okay. All right. So life's just not about living longer, it's about living healthy. I didn't make that up, but somebody did. All right. And so what we're going to be talking about are the four pillars that we're going to be talking about. I'm going to call them the four F's. And I didn't have any other reason to figure out because I said I have to have something that people will remember. The four F's: fasting, fitness, fiber, and protein. And people say, well, doctor, that ain't four F's. Well, yeah, we got to imagine that protein starts with an F. All right. But protein is easy enough for everybody to remember. So the four F system: engineering our metabolism, fasting. We got to fast. We got to practice some sort of fast every single day to clean out our system. We just got to do it. All right. And I can go into the details, but that's a whole lecture on itself. I can tell you that it's going to oxidize your fat better. I can tell you that it's going to clean out your system of the misfolded proteins. I can be very technical and I can break it down to you. But that in and of itself is an hour lecture. But fasting, what is it? It means going without any sort of caloric substance for a certain period of time. The science shows that in order for us to accomplish what we want to accomplish, and that is becoming more insulin sensitive, and that is that we want to get rid of the bad proteins in our body that have been in our body forever, it requires that our glucose and insulin levels go down to almost zero. Okay. The only way that that can happen is by fasting. So people say, well, I fast all the time. I go to bed and I get up in the morning and I eat. The science says you got to fast for at least 14 hours. So that's why we have the 16-8 and the 18-6 fasting protocols. We'll get into that. Okay. Because we've got to have nothing of substance other than water and tea and coffee, black, for mostly just water, because I don't like black coffee. Nobody who likes black coffee, by the way. But if you indeed do, that's all you can take during that fast. I prefer you just to take just water, okay? Has 0 calories and all that. But as soon as you wake up and you put your cup of coffee in there and you put a little cream in there, you've broken the fast, okay? So we have to go at least 14 hours before fasting really begins. It's biochemistry. I don't want to go into all the details of the biochemistry, but 14 hours is what they've studied that 99% of us will actually hit our fasting goals. Okay. So we're going to take it a little bit further to get deep into fasting. And that's why our minimum amount of fast is 16 hours. So I'm going to tell you, my fasting is basically the 18-6 almost every single day. And every now and then when I do my resistance training, like I will today, it'll be 16-8. Okay. So that means that what 16-8 means is that there's 16 hours that I won't do anything other than drink water or this stuff, the tea, without the sugar. And basically that amount of water is all I'm going to take in until 12 o'clock. 12 noon is when I begin my caloric intake. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and go do every 3 hours. I'm going to take in protein. These are called protein pulses. We talked about it before. There's some people here that are new here. We may have to talk about it a little bit again. But protein pulses are important. Okay. But fasting, that's the lecture in and of itself. Fitness is basically just doing your daily walking, right? That's it, right? No, that's not it. You've got to now incorporate resistance training. Now, we're going from months ago that I said, listen, you've got to walk 30 minutes every single day, get your 10,000 steps in, which is all cool. And we got to do it at zone 2, and you got to breathe only through your nose in order to open up your oxygen utilization. We all kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about here. Some of you do, some of you don't. But the fact of the matter is that walking is good. It's good. It's cardiovascular. It is good. But we've got to incorporate some sort of resistance training, primarily because we've got to preserve our muscle mass. We're going to talk about that. Then fiber, probably one of the most important things that we're going to talk about. And we're going to get into the sessions about why we need to have fiber on our plates because it's protective. This is protective. There are two types of fiber that I want you to take in. This is soluble fiber, it's powder, and it's pure fiber. It has about 5 types of soluble fiber in them. I won't go through the names because it makes me look goofy trying to pronounce all the names. But the second thing I want you on your plate is indeed some sort of cruciferous vegetables. Maybe just a salad without the croutons, without the Thousand Island salad dressing and things of that nature. But mostly the broccoli, the broccolini, the Brussels sprouts, the asparagus, the things that are crunchy and the things that take a little while, things that take a little time for you to crunch and actually chew on. Those chewing signals and all those things actually have hormonal feedback systems that we'll briefly discuss. And then lastly is the fourth F, protein. I'm not sure how I'm going to explain that. So people see this on a video later on, they can say, what the hell is he talking about? But anyway, protein, the 4F system. Protein is essential. We've got to take it in a certain way. We should know now that just taking in a certain amount of protein every single day is okay. We've got to take in that amount of protein, 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram. You can figure it out for yourself of ideal body weight. We've got to do that just to manage our wholesomeness of our body, just for our body to survive. But on top of that, we've got to prevent muscle breakdown. And I'm going to be talking about that over and over and over again, primarily because muscle breakdown is our biggest problem, one of our biggest problems, along with the refined carbohydrates that we're doing. But our muscle breakdown is our problem because why? Muscle is our metabolic engine, means that we have to have it in order to burn the fat. If we lose it, eventually, at some point in time, we're going to regain the fat, period, full stop. And I don't care if you lose it now in your 30s or if you lose it when you're in your 60s, you're going to become more fragile. You're going to have less of the stuff that the muscle pushes out into the bloodstream called myokines, which affect the brain, which affect the heart, which affect the kidneys, which affect the pancreas. All those signals feed back to the rest of your body, telling your body, you've got to have this healthy heart. You got to have these healthy joints. You got to have this healthy pancreas because the muscle is demanding that. The muscle is that central messenger. All right. So life's not about living longer. It's about living healthier longer. Okay. There was my other favorite saying is that it was back in the 19th century, or somebody named Carlyle said it, is that if you have health, you have hope. And if you have hope, you have everything. Now, I just kind of want you to, when you're doing some of the things that we're going to tell you what to do on a daily basis in the form of mindfulness, I want you to just kind of repeat that. If you have your health, you got hope. And if you have hope, you got everything. You got life by the tail. Period. You do. Because whether you get 60s, 70s, and you got problems with high blood pressure, diabetes, and you can't get around, and you're figuring, okay, fine, do I have to start thinking about a nursing home or start thinking about how am I going to lead my life? Do I want to live here and be like this at the end of my life? This is how I want to spend my last years. Don't even fret that. Don't even worry about it. Because if indeed you do the things that you need to do, which are simple things, and at the same time, ward off all the bad things that are constantly hitting us every single day, lack of sleep, stress, and then refined carbohydrates. We are intentionally being bombarded every single day with a bunch of things that we can take care of. And that's why you got to as far as I'm concerned, you got to come here because this is your support. When I educate you, I try to educate you not just to give you the knowledge, not just to give you the knowledge to use whatever tool it is that I'm going to give you, but I want to give you that knowledge that you can actually use every single day. Took me a long time to acquire. I didn't acquire it overnight. It took me my whole career to do it. But I've got it, and I want you to get it, and I want you to practice it. Okay. So basically, if you got your health, you got hope and everything. All right, here we go. All our diseases started with insulin resistance, from high blood pressure to diabetes to brain fog to cancer to chronic diseases almost always begin with insulin resistance. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about that. You can Google it. But we're talking about high blood pressure. We're talking about type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes. We're talking about obesity. We're thinking that obesity is causing all these problems. No, obesity is only one result of this problem called insulin resistance. Okay? Obesity is just like high blood pressure. It's caused by something. Okay? And that's insulin resistance. So sleep apnea, heart attack, and stroke, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, all these things, and cancers and dementia. All right. Well, what is insulin resistance? Well, insulin resistance comes about by three basic principles, three basic problems. One is stress, one is lack of sleep, but the other, the most common one that we're faced with today, and what we're going to be talking about today, is our constant day-to-day struggles with the food intake. Refined carbohydrates, the things that we put into our mouths, the seed oils, the things that we're putting into our mouths that we can control. Can we control the stress? Can we control the politics and the stuff that's going on out there in the world every single day that's giving us stress? No, we can't control it. We have no control over it. Can we mitigate it? Can we actually do something about it? Yes, that's what we're going to be talking about today. I can't come over there and make you sleep, but I can tell you how to sleep. Okay. But today we're going to be concentrating on what it is that you're putting into your mouths that we can control because and it's not about willpower. This is going to be showing you that it's not your fault. It is not anybody's fault. It is what they're actually doing to you. Okay. So insulin resistance is caused primarily by the foods we put into our mouths, and those foods basically cause a glucose spike, and insulin is that product that follows glucose. When you're taking in carbohydrates, you get a glucose spike. Then it's a spike and it goes down, which is a problem. We'll talk about that too, because if that along with that glucose goes dopamine, and the spike and the drop are the keys. So we want to control our glucose spikes because our insulin then goes up, but it doesn't come back down with the glucose. It stays up for several hours. And so when we're constantly getting glucose spikes throughout the day and we're constantly having insulin that stays up throughout the day, our cells that normally respond to a rhythmic insulin stimulation, opening up the cells, putting the glucose in, the cell saying, wait a minute, I'm getting, my doorbell is being rung too many times. That insulin is constantly on. I'm not going to answer the door anymore. That's insulin resistance. And as a result of all that insulin being up all the time, which is an abnormal state, our body's biochemistry reacts to that, and it ain't good. So again, you'd have to go to the medical school and all that kind of stuff, or really study it to show what the ultimate effects, the deterioration of our cells when we have a constant state of insulin resistance. A constant state of insulin exposure leads to these things because insulin is supposed to go up and come down. It's supposed to go up and come down. But today we have our insulin up all day long, every single day. So people often ask me, well, do you know what you're talking about? Have you ever been in my shoes? And yes, I have. And I just always show this just to kind of remind you, but mostly to remind me. But yeah, I've been there and I ain't going back. There's just no going back. And there are a lot of folks here that are here primarily for me to redo their surgery and all that. We've got to basically make sure that we take this mantra, put it in our brains. We can't go back. We can't go back. That going back to pre-diabetes that I had, to atrial fibrillation, which led to my congestive heart failure, my high blood pressure, and my elevated triglycerides. All of those things basically made me feel pretty bad. And this was only actually in my late 80s, late 80s, late 50s, early 60s. So I'm a lot healthier today, a little bit over a decade later, than I was back then. And I feel it. So all I'm asking you to do is to give it a shot. It's going to take some time. And I'm going to tell you today how long it's going to take. Because we say, well, how long is it going to take? Is this going to be a 2-week thing? No. It's going to be a 3-week thing? No. But I do have some data to share with you as to how long it's going to take. All right. And I just take a side shot, see if I can make that belly go away. This is the visceral fat, the white fat, the inflammatory fat that cause all these problems because this is insulin resistance. I said, let me see, let me hold my breath, suck it in. Didn't go away. It didn't go away. I was so disappointed that it didn't go away. But here I am today, and here I am basically primarily the fat is going away, and so the atrial fibrillation is going, the hypertension is going away, the diabetes or prediabetes is going, and the hypertension is going away on no drugs. Okay, the drugs that I do take are primarily vitamins and certain things that are like the vitamin E and things of that nature that you guys know about. That we have to do other things to decrease our daily exposure to our society, which is hyper-inflammatory in and of itself. So I got to take some anti-inflammatory stuff. That's what I do. All right. Now I'm sucking it in, and it actually went somewhere. I'm working on this little thing right here called a six-pack. It'll come. It'll come. But there's a big difference there. This is somebody who's insulin resistant. This is somebody who's not. This is somebody who feels that. This is somebody who's talking to you right now, and I'm here to preach to you. I really am. That you will feel a whole lot better. You ain't got to get down to where I get down. You just got to get the fat off. And you basically will begin to get your body back, your life back. Because I'm going to live my life as healthy as I can. As long as the Lord allows me to stay here and nothing creeps up on me, then I'm gonna do my part. Everything else is going to be just fate, but I'm going to do my part. Okay. 205, 167. My actual highest weight was 215. Somebody similar to me. Beautiful face, beautiful person, beautiful personality. Continue to do that. But basically, insulin resistant. Okay. And insulin resistant, but having a good time in life, but realizing that okay, this smile hides a little thing. Oh, yeah, I'm happy, but am I really happy? So things were going on. I had issues. I'm not going to tell you about the issues. I had issues, but always presented with a smile, like we always do. Some of us will always just kind of put that smile on, and that's a beautiful thing. Spread that smile to the world and show people that you may be hurt on the inside, but you're going to give that smile to the outside. But realize that something has got to be done about the problems that you're going to face later on. And so she did. So she gave me this little thing. Said, hey, look what I got, Doc. Several years after her bariatric surgery. And that resulted in her doing the things that we're going to be talking about today. The protein pulsing, the fasting, the fiber, and the fitness. So she's got her muscle. She got her muscle maintained. She's doing her fasting. She's doing all the things we're talking about today. And the majority of people that I basically treat like this don't want to become this, but they do want to become a healthier version of themselves. Okay? So that's where we're going. All right. Now, so get into the good part. And some of these videos, again, are a little complex. I'm going to share with you the video, and I can find it. Please let me find it. Okay. If I go down to Chrome, there's this bar that gets into the way. Go down to Chrome. It's not it. Go down to this Chrome. That's it. All right. So let me find. I'm going to do a brief review. Now, these videos, let me just kind of give you a brief review, and I may stop this one.
Welcome to this explainer. Okay, listen up, because today we are adopting a completely different and frankly urgent mindset. I want you to go ahead and completely erase the phrase weight loss from your vocabulary. Why? Because traditional dieting, where you just relentlessly restrict calories, absolutely destroys your metabolism.
Let me ask you all a question before I take my ugly picture out of the way. But can y'all hear this okay? I'm going to pick the screen. Can everybody hear it okay? Put it in the chat box if you can hear it, because I don't want to. Let me see. Can you hear that? Okay, good. Everybody can hear it. This is going to be a short one. Then I'm going to show another one that I'm talking about. This is going to tell you, this is going to give you that protein, that fiber, that fitness, and all that. This is the explainer behind what it is that I'm talking about. Then I'm going to show you the how we're going to do it. And I'm going to show you something that's really going to blow your mind as to how we're being sabotaged every single day. And the fact that we're being sabotaged and that you don't know it is the problem that we get the weight regain, we get the problems that we have. It's something else that's actually doing that to us. But let's quickly go through this one right quick, okay? I think we've seen this before, but I won't. This only lasts 7 minutes.
Today, we're taking a deep, science-forward dive into biologically engineering our bodies. We're going to learn exactly how to preserve and even build muscle while strategically stripping away the fat. It's really a masterclass in treating your physiology like a highly complex engine that needs precise calibration rather than just starving it. So here is our blueprint for today. We'll cover the muscle-centric paradigm, silencing metabolic noise, the overweight protein paradox, fasting without muscle loss, the mechanical survival signal, and finally, the nighttime casein shield. Let's jump right in. All right, part 1, the muscle-centric paradigm. First things first, we've got to fundamentally change how we look at this tissue. Muscle is not just cosmetic, it's not just about aesthetics. It is your primary metabolic engine and your absolute biggest glucose sink. It's an incredibly active endocrine organ. Every single time your muscles contract, they secrete these peptides and cytokines called myokines. Think of myokines as messenger molecules. They're communicating directly with your liver, your fat tissue, your pancreas, and even your brain. Your muscle is literally directing the metabolic traffic of your entire body. And man, this brings us to the ultimate crisis of typical weight loss. If you just drop pounds indiscriminately without fiercely protecting this vital tissue, you downgrade your metabolic engine. By lowering your resting metabolic rate, you're essentially forcing your body to burn fewer calories for the other 21 hours of the day when you aren't working out. The scientific literature quite literally refers to this process as accelerated aging. So you aren't getting healthier, you're just getting smaller, weaker, and metabolically sluggish. Moving right along to part 2, silencing metabolic noise. Okay, so to protect that engine we just talked about, we have to make sure our muscles can actually hear the chemical signals we're sending them. But, and this is a big hurdle, if you're carrying excess body fat, you likely have some baseline level of insulin resistance and systemic inflammation. This creates a really hostile cellular environment. It's essentially biological static. It means your muscles become basically deaf to the growth commands you're trying to send in via your diet. A weak protein signal, it just gets totally ignored by your cells because it can't punch through that static. So how do we silence the static? We use a glucose shield. Honestly, this is non-negotiable. While insoluble fiber acts kind of like a broom for your gut, soluble fiber, stuff like psyllium husk or oat bran, is totally different. It actually absorbs water to form this thick, viscous gel right in your digestive tract. By getting in about 10 grams of soluble fiber right before your meals, you build a physical barrier.
So just wanted to stop right there because people all had asked me several times, listen, doctor, do I take the fiber with the meals or I take the fiber before the meals or after the meals? And so I wanted to get it clear. We want to have that sponge, and this is what the fiber is. This type of fiber are the psyllium husk that you can get off of Amazon. All this stuff is cheap. You take this before you take your meals, and that's kind of a just in case, but it's primarily for several reasons. It's going to absorb the glucose and it's going to absorb the cholesterol. Now, a lot of people have cholesterol problems that don't know it. but absorbing that cholesterol from whatever you eat, whether it's going to be fat. So you're going to, even in salmon that has the good fat, it's going to help absorb some of that fat as well. That's not part of that good fat. So the fiber about 15 minutes before your meal is a pretty quick fix. And I just, like I said, I'll put into a little glass of water. I'll pour it in here and then I'll take it in. Now I'll do it before my 12 o'clock meal because my 12 o'clock meal is going to pretty much start with just a protein shake, a whey protein shake. They'll tell you here. But I'm also going to have 2 boiled eggs and a couple slices of beef bacon. Okay. But yeah, 15 minutes beforehand. So that just kind of clears up some of the questions that people were asking me this week.
Slows down sugar absorption and completely flattens those post-meal insulin spikes. You're creating cellular clarity so the muscle can finally hear the signals again. Now for part 3, the overweight protein paradox. All right, now that we've shielded the system, we hit this incredibly fascinating biological paradox. A lot of people think, hey, I want to lose weight. I need to drastically cut all my macros, right? Even protein. No way. Because of that metabolic static, individuals with excess body fat actually need more protein, not less.
And that is the key for almost 100% of the patients that came in, except 99% of the people that came in to see me. Nobody knew how much protein they were taking in. No, and so when we counted it, and I said, "What did you take in yesterday?" Well, obviously, the people who had bariatric surgery are taking in less. People who were on the GLP-1 drugs were taking in less food, so they were nowhere near the amount of protein that they were taking in. And they asked a very good question, and this will answer it for you as well. Doc, how am I going to get in 160 grams of protein if I'm just taking in 1 meal a day, or if I'm just taking in 2 meals a day? Well, you're right. You're right. But it's going to require, if you're going to eat whole food, a piece of salmon that's the size of your hand, that's 40 grams of protein. That's only 40 grams. I'm just eating once a time a day. That's 40 grams. And so I'm undercutting away amount. So yeah, the times before that, you got to take in 3 other protein shakes. That's where the protein shakes has got to become an integral part of all your lives, and not just for the bariatric surgery patients, not for the ones who are just on GLP-1s, but for everybody. Because the old adage that, yeah, we're going to lose 1% of our muscle mass after the age of 30, and there's nothing we can do about it, is so false. So it's not even funny. We don't have to lose 1% per year. We just don't have to, or a pound a year. We don't basically have to do that. Okay. And it's about taking in the protein and giving the body the building blocks, as well as having that knowledge to make sure you know how to turn on that muscle protein synthesis signal. Okay. This is what we're going to talk about here.
During weight loss, simply preserving your fat-free mass requires about twice the standard recommended daily allowance of protein. We're talking roughly 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. You simply need a much louder signal to shout over the noise of that anabolic resistance. So the crucial point here is exactly how we deliver that louder signal. To really shout over the static, you must get a solid, dense bolus of 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein in a single meal. Why that highly specific number? Because it guarantees you deliver about 3 grams of the amino acid leucine. Leucine is the absolute ignition key. Muscle building isn't a dimmer switch.
All right. So basically that leucine thing is basically what I get when you take in the 30 to 40 grams of this particular type of protein, just the powder. Or if you're going to take a piece of chicken breast or chicken by itself, that's going to give you that 40 grams of protein as well. But that 40 grams of protein that this has in it, all the amino acids this has in it, are the building blocks. But the only thing that's going to turn those building blocks into a wall is going to be, it's got to be that 3 grams of leucine. Okay. So in that 40 grams, it contains the leucine. Now, sometimes I don't have time to make a shake, like when I'm at the office and all that. So I'll take in one of these. When I take on one of these little premier proteins, this is about 30 grams, so I need 30 grams. It just says here 30 to 40 grams on the screen. All right. But this doesn't have the 3 grams of leucine in it. I've tested it. It doesn't. All right. So with these, if you're going to use these, you got to go get for Amazon, and you got to get some leucine. Now, this leucine, just a scoop of this leucine will give you 5 grams. So you don't need to take the whole 5 grams. Just take 3/4 of that scoop, and it's a little small, tiny scoop. I forgot to take the little scooper out, but it's a little tiny scoop. And you take that scoop, you drink a little bit of this, and you go ahead and scoop that in there. You shake it up, and now you have all your amino acids and you have your leucine, which is going to do exactly what this video is getting ready to tell you to do. All right. Try not to interrupt you anymore.
It's a binary on-off switch. Hitting that leucine threshold is what physically flips the MTR switch, which is the master regulator of muscle protein synthesis, straight into the on position. Which brings us to part 4, fasting without muscle loss. Let's look at how we practically build this into your daily schedule. Fasting is absolutely incredible for suppressing insulin and triggering fat burning. But here's the catch. A single giant meal only gives you 1 growth event per day. Our muscle machinery actually hits a refractory stop switch after about 3 hours of protein synthesis. So we map out the day like this. We use clear protein drinks or fast-acting whey to create strategic protein pulses every 3 hours. This gives you the leucine trigger to bridge the gaps between your fasts. It prevents muscle stagnation, but it completely preserves the metabolic benefits of your fast. Boom, you get 4 distinct growth events in just a single day.
So I don't mean to keep interrupting. I don't want this to be the last time I interrupt. The more important video is about to come. But when I mean by 4 protein pulses every single day, you can mix and match however you want to. Like I said, I'll start mine out because this will be easy because I'm sitting at home. I'll go ahead and make this my first 40-gram whey protein shake, and I'll take a couple of eggs. But the eggs itself by themselves just doesn't do it. 7 eggs, has 5 to 7 grams of protein, and so you're not going to get all that just with the eggs and the bacon. But you go ahead and take that. That's going to be this. All right. But do you have to take 4 protein shakes in a day? Absolutely not. I'm saying 4 protein pulses. Now, if you're going to eat salmon at night or some chicken at night, that's going to be your 40 grams. But that 3 hours beforehand, what did you do? Now, if you weren't hungry, and most of you will not be hungry, that's why you have to take these little things along with you. I take them with me because I'm not hungry. I have every 3 hours on my watch, I have a timer that says I need to take the protein shake. But because I'm not hungry, I got to time it. But I don't want to miss that opportunity because, again, that muscle protein synthesis, that window opens up every 3 hours. So it allows you to get your protein in throughout the day at the right timing. And I want you all to start Googling some of the stuff that I'm talking about. Google about timing of protein intake and how it makes a difference as far as your metabolism is concerned, as far as your muscle maintenance is concerned. And it's important that we maintain our muscle mass as we age, period. All right. So if you want to just take in 3 protein shakes and 1 meal, cool. If you take it in 2 meals, like at noontime, I'm going to take in 2 eggs and bacon. That's going to be 1 meal along with protein shake. Or if you just wanted to take in a steak and egg dinner that's going to give you 40 grams of protein and then some chicken at night, that's 2 doses of protein pulses. And then you got to have 1 to 2 more of a protein shake. So no, I'm not saying take protein shakes all day. So you take the protein shakes to fill in the gaps when you're not eating the 40 grams of protein in whole food. Okay.
Next up, part 5, the mechanical survival signal. Now, as great as nutrition is, it alone isn't going to cut it. Muscle is massively expensive metabolic overhead, and honestly, your body actively wants to shed this calorie-burning luxury tissue if it doesn't think it needs it. General random movement like walking the dog or gardening is fantastic for your heart for sure, but it completely fails to threaten homeostasis. Your body doesn't see any biological reason to keep huge, expensive muscles just to go for a walk. To override that deeply ingrained biological drive to shrink down, we must send an explicit mechanical survival signal. We literally have to command the body to retain the tissue. And here is exactly how you send that command. You absolutely must use heavy compound movements 2 to 3 times a week. We're talking about the big ones: lat pull downs, bent over rows, barbell squats, or a heavy leg press and leg curls. And you have to lift those loads to a proximity of failure.
So you don't have to go to the gym to do all that. You can basically get these resistance bands and do some of that same stuff. So she's talking about barbells and bent over rows and all that kind of stuff, which requires kind of you going to the gym. But I have all this stuff in my house and some stretch bands as well as some light weights as well. So you don't have to go to the gym for that. Because we're going to make an excuse not to go to the gym. So I want to make it as easy as possible. Put this stuff, get some stretch bands of different weight types in your home, so you don't have to have that excuse.
Why? Because this induces profound mechanical tension across the muscle fibers. It physically convinces your central nervous system that keeping this tissue is an absolute, non-negotiable survival necessity. It justifies the high metabolic cost of keeping the engine around. Finally, part 6, the nighttime casing shield. We really need to talk about the longest fasting period of your day. Think about it for a second. You've dialed in all your meals, you've pulsed your protein, you've lifted super heavy, but then you go to sleep. If your body runs out of circulating amino acids at, say, 3 a.m., it will literally turn on itself. It will cannibalize the exact muscle tissue you just worked so painstakingly hard to build just to fuel your brain and organs while you sleep. We obviously can't let that happen. So the solution here is highly specific. It requires a brute force threshold dose of exactly 40 grams of casein protein right before you go to bed. And look, casein is fundamentally different from whey protein. It's the ultimate nighttime armor. Let's break down the exact mechanics of this nighttime shield. First step, you take 3 grams of HMB. HMB acts as this incredible chemical shield, independently decreasing muscle breakdown by a staggering 57%. Then, step 2, those 40 grams of casein actually clot in your stomach. Yeah, it forms a bolus. So instead of absorbing instantly like whey, it slow drips amino acids into your bloodstream for a solid 6 to 7 hours. This combo creates a powerful anti-catabolic bridge that safely carries your hard-earned muscle mass all the way through the night. So what's the ultimate takeaway here? It's profound, really. Stop trying to starve yourself into health. Actually, scratch that entire mindset right now. Stop looking at the scale as the ultimate metric of success while your underlying metabolic engine degrades. You now have the exact protocols, the soluble glucose shield, the leucine triggers, the mechanical survival signals from heavy lifting, and that nighttime casein armor. The only question left is, how are you going to implement this biological engineering blueprint into your life tonight?
All right. So that was to me, that was powerful because yeah, you have to take the protein, you have to do the resistance training, you got to pull that all together. Because again, losing that muscle mass is so important. Now, okay, fine. So now you kind of know that you got to do the fasting, you got to do the protein, you got to do the resistance training, and you got to take in the fiber. But we're fighting something every single day that I need to show you. And this next video is going to be very powerful, and I want you to kind of pay close attention to it if I can find it. All right, let me go back to my. All right, this is this thing called what we want, because again, we're fighting a system of food on our shelves almost everywhere we go that is telling us, yeah, let's eat more of this. Let's do more of this. It's the want versus the like. And I'm going to have this video on the website, and I think you need to watch it several times. Okay. I don't know why I'm saying what I'm saying, but I'm going to put this on here today. This is the explainer video today, the neuroscience of.
Everyone, welcome to this explainer. If you're currently juggling exams, your social life, and that constant barrage of snack foods literally everywhere you look.
So I didn't quite get it. We're going to talk about the neuroscience of cravings, okay? Because everything that this is getting ready to tell you, it historically began with the tobacco industry, where the engineers with the tobacco industry, in order to sell tobacco and cigarettes, which everybody was buying, they had to kind of take away that pungent taste of it. And so they found out the portions of the brain that did that, and then they found out something else, how it makes you want another cigarette and another cigarette. And the same thing goes with alcohol, and the same thing goes with food. There's a part of the brain, the mesolimbic system, the dopamine system. But what I want you to get out of this particular video is how that system is different than what we like, because everybody thinks that we want what we like. But the two sides of the brain that control that are so different that it's going to blow your mind. No pun intended. But so the thing is that we've got to understand that. And once we understand that, then once we understand what we need to do on a daily basis to counteract that, then it's fine. That's fine. One of the things that is probably not going to show you here, one of my favorite things is that commercial back in the day in the 1960s or 70s. I don't know if you remember it or not. The Lay's potato chip. I bet you can't eat just one. Well, if you look up where that saying came from, it came from a bet that these scientists were making with each other of how they can inject certain things into the food to make sure that you just couldn't eat just one. Taking it down to the point where it was almost like melting in your mouth. The potato chips, the Cheetos, where you don't even realize the calories that you're consuming. And it really stimulated your mesolimbic wanting system. So the scientists won that bet. And they start using that to make sure that you just can't eat just one. So you'll sit on the couch and you'll eat that whole bag of potato chips, that whole bag of Cheetos, that whole bag. You'll eat a whole bag of everything without realizing what it's doing to your mind long term even. Long term even. And this is powerful. So I want you to watch this, okay? And watch it again when I put it on the website.
Well, this one's for you. Today, we're unpacking the neuroscience of cravings, and more importantly, how to hack your brain right back. So, why do we crave junk food, even when we know it's bad for us? We've all been there, right? You promise yourself you're going to eat healthy today, but then suddenly you're staring at the bottom of an empty chip bag. But here's the secret. It's really not about a lack of personal willpower. Today, we're going to look straight under the hood of our own brains to see exactly how our biology actually gets hacked by food engineers. Okay, let's dive into this, because this is absolutely mind-blowing. Our brains actually have two entirely separate, distinct circuitries, one for craving a food and a totally different one for actually enjoying it. They're not the same thing. The wanting system is this massive, powerful network fueled by dopamine. It's basically a biological accelerator pedal, slamming down and pushing you toward food. But the liking system, the part that actually feels the pleasure, that's totally different and honestly surprisingly fragile. Let's quickly define these terms. In neuroscience, wanting is called incentive salience. That's your dopamine-fueled motivation. It's what makes you hunt down the reward. Liking, on the other hand, is hedonic impact, the actual sensory joy you get when eating. And here's the crazy part. That liking system relies on these tiny, fragile little joy receptors called opioid hotspots. They take up less than 10% of one tiny area deep inside your brain. So you've got this massive engine screaming, I want it, but a really limited biological capacity to actually enjoy it. So the crucial point here is this specific ratio, 1-to-1. This is the exact ratio of added fats to refined carbohydrates engineered into ultra-processed foods. Now,
so let me just kind of stop it just here because this is the only thing I really want to interject here. This is how all our foods are. And it's going to show you some examples of what we're taking on a day-to-day basis. When we take in that hamburger, when we take in that meat, all right, that's the fat. And almost everything that we're taking in some protein. So we're going to leave out the formula of protein in that 1-to-1. So it's going to be fat because in salmon, there's fat, there's protein. In nuts, there's fat, there's protein. And in chicken, there's fat, there's protein. So we leave that out. But what the scientists have come up with is it's the fat. It's the fat that kind of hits that dopamine system, okay? But actually in our ancestors, we only ate one type of product at a time. So our bodies have evolved to only expect that. Then the scientists said, well, what if we wanted them to want more? And so they said, well, let's try this experiment. Let's add some carbohydrates to it. Let's add some rice to that steak. Let's add some macaroni and cheese to that steak. Let's see what happens. They did that in rats, and they did it in mice. They did it back in the tobacco industry. And this is what they found is that it supercharged that want system, that dopamine, which made it go into a frantic circle of wanting and wanting it more every single day. And so we continue to feed that system every time we eat bread with our meal, every time we eat macaroni and cheese with our meal, with our rice, rather than just eating the thing that requires, and this is, I'm going to stop here, but requires you to masticate, to actually chew the foods. So all this is going to be, I'm going to say it now before the thing ends, but our meals should be designed if we're going to have protein, the fat, which is going to be in the meat, the chicken, the ribs, and all that, and basically cut out the carbohydrate part of it. Whether it's the barbecue sauce that you put on the ribs, whether it's the rice, the mashed potatoes, the sweet potatoes, the whatever the carbohydrate is that we put on the second part of the ribs, replace that all times with cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, broccolini, asparagus, whatever you could think of, that takes some crunching, that takes some biting, that takes mastication, that then feeds back to your sympathetic, your parasympathetic system, and to your ghrelin system. That's what's going to work. Okay. So let me finish that up and I'm going to shut up. Sorry about that.
Out in nature, you almost never find dense fats and carbs together like this. But when you eat this artificial one-to-one combo, it triggers a massive, super additive dopamine surge. It's an unnatural explosion of reward chemicals. And guys, your brain literally never evolved the biological brakes to handle this simultaneous hit. So it sends your want system into absolute overdrive. Now, what's really interesting is how easily we accidentally trigger this trap in our normal everyday meals. Take breakfast, bacon and eggs. Those are natural fats and proteins, but slap them on a dense, refined carb like a bagel, and boom, you've accidentally created that one-to-one bliss point that completely short circuits your brain's fullness signals. The same thing happens with chicken and rice or salmon and mashed potatoes. Now compare that to how our ancestors ate, evolutionarily isolated meals. Think salmon and broccoli, chicken on a green salad, or almonds with berries. By keeping the fat and the carbs isolated, your body processes them naturally without that crazy dopamine explosion. And food scientists definitely don't stop at just that one-to-one ratio. They use this incredibly sneaky trick called vanishing caloric density. Have you ever eaten a cheese puff? Notice how it practically just melts into thin air the second it hits your tongue? Yeah, that is heavily engineered because it melts so incredibly fast, it totally tricks your brain into thinking you just consumed 0 calories. Your brain's satiety or fullness signals are completely masked. It makes you feel like you could just keep eating them forever, right? This is exactly why the idea of just having one bite of junk food is honestly a biological myth. When you hammer your brain with these unnatural dopamine explosions, it tries to protect itself by actually removing dopamine receptors. We call this dopamine resistance. And at the exact same time, those fragile little joy receptors we talked about, they habituate, meaning you actually enjoy the food less and less every time. That massive spike completely decouples the two systems, trapping you in this irrational state of wanting without liking. You're compulsively eating more, even though it doesn't even taste that amazing anymore. We don't have a thinking brain that feels, we have a feeling brain that thinks. This quote from neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett perfectly captures the emotional side of cravings. See, all the sensory info from your environment, what you see, smell, or even the stress you're feeling about school hits your ancient survival and emotional centers first. It hits there way before your logical brain gets a chance to even process it. You literally feel before you can think. And this brilliantly illustrates that epic internal battle we all face. On one side, you've got your prefrontal cortex, your wise CEO. It handles logic, planning, and your long-term health goals, calm and collected. But on the other side, you have your amygdala, deep in the limbic system. Think of it as a panicked security guard. The amygdala is constantly scanning for threats. When you're stressed, it slams the alarm and demands quick, dopamine-fueled relief right now. And unfortunately, the security guard usually wins. So why does the panicked security guard win? It comes down to the cortisol override. Keeping that wise CEO online takes a massive amount of metabolic energy. So when you're super stressed out by an upcoming math test or, social drama, your brain floods with the stress hormone cortisol. This rapidly bankrupts the prefrontal cortex's energy reserves and basically unplugs it. To save energy, your brain just hands the steering wheel over to the basal ganglia, the primitive area that runs automatic, low energy, junk food seeking habits. Let's move to how this builds into our rescue strategy. Because here's the good news. You don't have to just be a victim to your own biology. Think of this as your rescue manual. You can actually use top-down control to manually override that panicked security guard and put your wise CEO back in the driver's seat. But to do it, we have to flip a switch. We have to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your body's cool, calm, rest, and digest mode. So here's your step-by-step physical grounding technique. The very second you feel that overwhelming, frantic urge to binge, pause. Step 1, take a deep breath and just close your eyes. Step 2, focus intensely on the physical sensation of the soles of your feet touching the floor. Really feel it. Step 3, roll your shoulders back to slightly arch your lower spine. This specific physical movement triggers a chemical reaction that literally lowers your heart rate. And step 4, if that craving thought keeps popping up, visualize a massive bright red stop sign. Boom, you just rebooted your logical brain. Now that your CEO is back online, you can build up your dietary defenses to bypass that dangerous bliss point entirely. First up, isolate those macros. Try not to mix dense fats and dense carbs in the exact same meal. Second, anchor every single meal with 25 to 30 grams of protein. Digesting protein takes major metabolic energy, and it physically suppresses ghrelin, which is your main hunger hormone. And third, prioritize intact, viscous fiber, like crunchy vegetables. Fiber physically stretches out your stomach, triggering a huge release of fullness hormones. You are literally arming your biology for success. We've covered a ton of ground in this explainer, looking at the exact neurobiological mechanisms that trick us into overeating. So I want to leave you with this. If your intense cravings were carefully engineered by food scientists in a lab, what will you choose to do now that you have the rescue manual to your own brain? You've got the tools, you actually understand the science, and now that top-down control is completely in your hands. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you next time.
That was powerful, very powerful, because again, and I did a lot of research on this. Again, like those Lay's potato chips, right? That we eat the whole bag. Those Lay's potato chips, how much those Lay's potato chips cost. I just looked at online to see how much. I didn't realize how Walmart and Target, for a bag of Lay's potato chips or Cheetos, how much it costs. I think the lowest price I found for a big bag was like $5 or something like that. The cost to make that $5 bag of those chips, like 75 cents. The whole bag is 75 cents for the food part. The packaging, I have no idea. I didn't explore that. But they're charging you something like $5, $6 in certain places for something that costs to fill that bag of 75 cents. So that is just to tell you what their incentive is to keep you eating that kind of stuff. All right, so I'm going to just kind of reiterate some of those things. Let's see. Let's see, today, the explainer. I just want to make sure that we kind of got that, and then we'll end. Somebody asked in the chat box, I had a sleeve a couple of years ago and got hooked on the wrong thing. Can we do the GLP-1? We can do GLP, but I tell everybody from here that I do GLP-1 drugs as a bridge, because the GLP-1 drugs will indeed stop you from taking in food. And we constantly fix ourselves on that scale. To me, I wish there was some kind of way we can get rid of these ordinary scales. Even those different types of scales that measure your fat and your bone, they're not accurate. They're not 100% accurate. But they're not useless either. And so when you come back to the office, we have a specialized scale that can actually measure your body fat. As you're doing that, as you're losing weight, you're saying hallelujah. But when we see that you're losing muscle mass, we're going to stop it, because the whole point is that, you're losing the weight. And so the fat amount is still there, and you're going to get older next year and the year after that. Without muscle mass, it's not going to be a pretty sight. And so a lot of people who are on chronic GLP-1 drugs are not going to realize it, because these drugs hadn't been out there that long, 5, 7 years. It's not going to take until people actually get into their 60s that they're going to start realizing what loss of muscle mass is going to mean to them. That ain't gonna be pretty. All right. Let's just kind of go over some of these slides here, just to kind of, and I'm through after this. All right. Why do we keep eating when we aren't even hungry? It's not a lack of willpower. It's not unauthorized system override. Okay. You're about to learn the cheat codes that we're gonna hack into. Okay. All right. So this is that hunter-gatherer thing. And back in our ancestors, and even in animal life, when you have a bear going out hunting for food, if they're going to eat a bunch of berries, they're going to eat a bunch of berries, and that's going to be it. They're going to fill themselves on berries, right? Or they're going to go by the stream, the river. They're going to catch some salmon coming flying out the thing. They're going to catch that salmon. They're not going to reach for the mashed potatoes or the macaroni and cheese and say, well, I can't eat this salmon by itself. We've never done that before. We've only eaten the fat by itself, or either the healthy carbohydrates, the cruciferous vegetables, the nuts, we've eaten those by themselves. And so our brain has been evolved to do just that. And then we came into this part, the modern environment where the lab engineered abundance, fat and carbs together. That's what causes that mesolimbic system to overshoot. Okay. All right. Wanting versus liking. We look, like I said before, we've always thought that if I like it, I must want it, right? If I want it, I must like it. Not necessarily so. This wanting system is powered by the dopamine, the biological accelerator. It's aggressive. It's a primal drive to pursue. So we want something, we want it. And if our system has been hacked with the one-to-one fat to carbohydrates, then we're going to want more and more of it every single day, even though we don't necessarily like it. Now, their liking is talking a little bit differently though, but the liking is hedonic. Doesn't make you feel better. Thus, eating all that fat and carbohydrates together, even though you want it, doesn't make you feel pleasure. It may feel pleasure going down. You may want it, but your brain has been hacked. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can put these. All right. So part one, the hack, the 1-to-1 ratio. Part fat. Okay. That's the chicken, the walnuts, the almonds. That's the fat in there. It has protein in it, but I don't count the protein. They're concentrating on what fat does. They did a nice little study where they just took pure protein, the whey protein, and the powder, and did the same thing, combining the carbs. Not the same effect. Not good, but not the same effect. When you have real fat in it, because the whey protein powder doesn't have fat, you have real fat and combine the carb. That's when you get that bliss point. And that bliss point is that super additive dopamine response. It's a big spike and then it's a big drop. And then what happens is when that dopamine crashes, you say, whoa, the body's systems goes into panic. That amygdala goes on. That guard says, whoa, this is stressful. I need that want again. So I want it. Let me do it again. Okay. So we're trapping ourselves into that system. Okay. And this is the hijack plates versus the critical override. These meals look healthy, but carbohydrates have been stripped them of their protective fiber. They hit the digestive system and spike the brain at the same time, the dopamine system, triggering the 1-to-1 dopamine surge and masking fullness. Salmon and mashed potatoes, chicken and rice. That is that problem that we face every single day. Put some bread on there. As they mentioned in the slide, we eat bacon and eggs in the morning. We put it on a croissant. That's a problem. It's a problem. Okay. All right. The phantom calories, vanishing calories. That's the one I was just talking about. The Cheetos, where it has that effect of that dopamine surge, but it also doesn't allow the expansion of your stomach. So you never hit that ghrelin, where that ghrelin turns off, right? So that ghrelin stays on. Ghrelin is the I'm hungry hormone. So that's why you continue to eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it, because it never turns on the signals that say stop eating it. That sensory, that sensor is bypassed. The tank is still empty because this stuff dissolves in your mouth. You're not really getting anything to mechanically stretch your stomach. Okay. So the addiction paradox is the liking, the wanting system. As you continue to do this stuff every single day, add some bread on your sandwiches, add some bread with every meal. The wanting is continuing over a period of time to increase in intensity. But at the same time, that liking decreases. Hedonically, you don't really like it. So that creates that divergence, which is called addiction. You want it more, but you don't really like it, but you're addicted to it. You gotta have it. Okay. So the emotional override. All right. Our prefrontal cortex is our brain that says, if I do this, I know it's wrong. If I eat this, I know it's going to give me bad health. But that prefrontal cortex has energy, and that energy is easily drained. It's fragile, and I didn't realize how fragile it was. But that system, that willpower that we're thinking about, is so fragile that when we bombard it with things like stress, cortisol, lack of sleep, that energy from the prefrontal cortex drains. And at the end of a draining cycle, the prefrontal cortex just says, hey, do whatever you want to do. So, and then your brain is like a computer. So that you don't have to use your prefrontal cortex all the time. All the little things we do every single day, it stores it into something called the dorsum of our brain, which is our sort of like a cache of the computer. Because every time you turn your computer on, it doesn't take all that memory and do it all over again. It stored everything that you actually looked for in the past in another part of the system called the cache. Well, that's this area here. That's the emotional area. And basically, when that brain, when this is what makes it a habit. So once that brain kind of gives up, then it defaults to this part where the habit takes over. So that prefrontal system says, I know this is bad for me, and it's exhausted. And basically, it's not firing correctly to give you that willpower, to give you that common sense that says, I know these chips ain't good. I know this ice cream and cheesecake ain't good for me, but it's going to default to this thing that you stored it over and over again as a habit. So this didn't have to take up so much energy. I know that's a little quirky, but I can explain it a little bit better. So the cortisol blackout, the trigger, the stresses every single day, the stress fatigue or negative emotions activate the amygdala. That's the guard. That's the security guard that says, "Hey, something's going on. Something's stressed. Something's happening. I gotta, I gotta put out a warning signal to the body." What does it do? It elevates cortisol. Cortisol directly impacts that prefrontal cortex, and it says, "Oh shoot, man, I got to think about that," and then it drains it. So the prefrontal cortex only has a limited amount of power, and it drains it every time it gets some sort of blackout. And so we're constantly faced every single day with stressful stuff, and so our prefrontal cortex, our willpower, is not there. It's not. It's not. So then that stuff that the prefrontal cortex has downloaded to its cache, so it ain't got to do so much work every single time. That's our habits. So it downloaded all the things that we need to do on a habitual basis to take care of that into our amygdala and basically our basal ganglia. I'm sorry. Don't get all these terms. Don't worry about all these terms. But the amygdala shoots the cortisol out, and then it cuts down the power of the prefrontal cortex, and it goes into the default mode, which is in the basal ganglia. Dorsal. This is the basal ganglia. Dorsolateral striatum takes over, and that's our habits. So what does our habits do? We go ahead and just eat what makes us feel comfortable. All right. A few more slides here. I'm through. So our metabolic armor, this is what we have to do. We got to take the protein, we got to take the fiber, the structurally intact fiber, the greens, the broccoli, the Brussels sprouts, all those things have to be taken in because those require things. And so when your mother told you to eat your vegetables, that is true. Now I take the salmon and the protein, but I also take the soluble fiber because it has a function as well. It absorbs the glucose. There's no glucose in what I mostly eat, but it also absorbs the cholesterol because there is cholesterol in steak, there is cholesterol in chicken and things like that. So that does that. Plus, it then feeds down into your system to activate your GLP-1. Okay, that's another story. So let's got the spelling wrong, the hack proof plates. The dinner is going to be some salmon and then some cruciferous vegetables that's going to require you to chew. It's not going to slide down like mashed potatoes or like a baked potato, like a sweet potato, or like the rice. It's not going to slide down. All right. Our lunch is going to be some chicken and some fiber, the same kind of fiber that's in this. Okay. That's our solution. That's part of the solution of what we're putting into our mouth. The other solution is the top-down control. Second, the defense number two is that we've got to do something physically with our bodies, and that is what we call mindfulness. And that is what we got to do every single day. So when you start thinking about, oh gosh, I'm stressed and we've got to come in contact with our system. Zone one, this is just kind of the signs of our stress, our amygdala firing off, saying something's going on. We got to control it. And what do we normally do? We go to our basal ganglia and eat. So this is what I want to leave you with. Because this works. It works for the majority of people, but you gotta do it and you gotta think about what you're doing. You gotta pause. You gotta pause. You gotta put your feet flat on the floor. You gotta arch that back just a little bit. That activates your parasympathetic system. And basically, you gotta just do the thing that we talked about last week. This is what I do. Is basically, I take 4 seconds to take a deep breath as deep as I can, and I hold it at the top for 4 seconds. And then I let it out for 4 seconds, all the way out, pushing all of it out of my lungs. And then I use 4 seconds in order to take a couple of normal breaths. Then I repeat that again. And it didn't show in here is that you do that every time you feel something coming across your mind, no matter what the stress is, no matter what the craving is that it takes 66 days of doing that to kind of change that habit, to get that frontal cortex back healthy again, because you're going to stop the cortisol bombardment of that prefrontal cortex and allow it to function again. Okay. So that system works. And people think that it's hokey, but it's not that big of a deal. You can do it. And it helps a period of 66 days because that's what the study says on average. So don't expect it to get any better in a week. Don't expect 2 weeks. I don't expect 3 weeks. It's going to take 2 months at least. And sometimes it even takes longer than that, depending upon how severe your system is. Okay. So that's how you hack it. So they're hacking us every single day. You hack it back. You hack it back by recognizing that we're not going to change the world. We're not going to change the politics. We're not going to change the unrest. We're not going to change any of that stuff. What we can do is change how it affects us. And that's extremely important. Okay? All right. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for today. Let me stop that thing. I'm gonna stop the sharing. But I hope that was helpful because again, I can tell you all day long what to eat. And you can do it, but you'll do it for a certain period of time, you'll stop. I can tell you all day long, we can find, yeah, we want you to lose weight and that'll make you healthy. But I want you to lose the right weight, like the question that was on there about the GLP-1. Yeah, I use GLP-1s to jumpstart people who weigh 400, 500 pounds who are looking to have surgery. I'll jumpstart those. Or people who have stalled. I'll basically push those a little bit with GLP-1s. But I do not believe that hacking your brain with a drug is the way to go. Don't believe that. And because again, we don't know what the long-term effects are. Okay, that GLP-1 that we're giving you in a shot, that's affecting your brain, telling you that you're full and you had eaten a single bit of protein is not that good to me. And basically, I don't know what it's going to do for you 10 years from now because we've already seen some neurological effects of it. So we hadn't studied it long enough. And I remember back in the history when we had dinitrophenol and we had fen-phen, and we always thought that those were great until they weren't. I don't want that to happen. And so, yeah, do I use it because I think that it does help for the short term, but for the long term, no. And if you're on it the long term and then you stop it, you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. You're going to have lost muscle mass, and you've got to, by definition, regain it back as fat because the fat was never really gone. Okay. All right. All right. Everybody just got to tell me if they've learned anything new today. And if they have, I really appreciate it. And next week, I promise you, I'm going to try to make these better and better. But every week, I want to give you something powerful to help you make that change. Next week, we're going to probably just, I had a family member of mine tell me about their cholesterol. And I want to talk a little bit about cholesterol. So we're going to talk about some of the things like that as well. Okay. All right. Well, sorry I went over time. I'm 15 minutes over the time. But I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you learned something and come back to me when you come to the office. Tell me how much protein you're taking in. Tell me how you're taking it in. and tell me how much fiber you're taking it in and what types of fiber those are. Okay? We have fibers in the office. I'll sell them to you in the office. We have a fiber tasting table that you could taste the fiber. You could taste the one that they we sell on Amazon. I'll give you that and try to make you drink a little bit of that, but I'll also give you some of this to help you taste this as well. And make sure you make it a habit of putting this, the salmon, the chicken, the lentils, whatever you're going to be eating as your protein and fat source. Make sure you keep it by itself, but with the cruciferous vegetables and with this stuff as well. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend. I enjoyed it. Take care.